All right, and welcome back to the Beyond Coaching podcast. Today we're with Coach Brice Helms, owner of CrossFit Fix in Tucson, Arizona. He's a coach who's been in the game for over 2 decades. Brice started as a personal trainer in the early 2000s, built his client business from the ground up, and eventually bought his own gym in 2017. He's learned every lesson the hard way, from burnout and mentorship to transforming his model from class only to a high touch coach-driven business. Today, we'll talk about his journey, what CrossFit and functional fitness look like in 2025, and how he's evolving with trends like HYROX and semi-private coaching. How are we doing?
Good, Zach. Good, Zach. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Absolutely, man. Talk me through personal training in the early 2000s. I didn't even know it existed back then. What did that look like?
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah. Back in the day, like 2003, I went full time as a personal trainer. Worked for a small studio here in Tucson. It was Better Bodies was the name of it. And back then, like personal training, we would do either 60-minute clients or 30-minute clients, and it'd be like back to back to back to back to back clients. Um, all with different goals, all different people and stuff like that. So it would end up being like, you could pack in quite a bit of people in one day, but it would make for like a long day, like coaching from like dark to dark pretty much. But yeah, I did that for quite a while. Started my own personal training business in 2014 and then ended up buying my gym, CrossFit Fix, in 2017.
How did that process go? So were you were a member at the gym, right? And you were coaching at the gym?
No, it wasn't. I knew I was coaching at a small studio, just doing my own personal training clients, just paying rent to the owner of the place, and was approached by a friend of mine who was actually my old boss at this Better Bodies that I was talking about back in the late 2000s. He got into commercial real estate and was working out at this CrossFit gym that was not far from where I was at. He told me that the owners were looking to sell, and that the owners, I actually knew they were clients of Better Bodies, like way back when I was coaching there. They weren't my clients, but I knew who they were. So they didn't want to own a gym anymore. They opened it up 3 years prior in 2014. And so it was just kind of like just a funny connection, just of, like past friends that just like, oh, hey, we're trying to do this. And I was like, hey, that sounds great. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
What was going through your head making that leap? Was it excitement, fear, a little bit of both? What did that look like?
Yeah, for sure. Like owning a gym was one of those things that never really, I never really thought would be like attainable, right? Just because I know like there's a lot of money that goes into it. There's a lot of work that goes into it. I was just kind of like, I'm good doing personal training. I was doing just fine with that. But it was always in the back of my head, like, hey, maybe someday I'll own my own gym. And really, it was just kind of an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I was definitely super nervous. But at the same time, I felt like, okay, like if I don't do this now, it's never going to happen.
Definitely, definitely. And like looking back, what did you not know about owning a gym that you wish someone had told you?
So completely different than working in a gym or personal training, right? I was thinking, when I bought the gym, I was like, okay, well, it was a group class. It was a class-based facility, right? That's like all it was, just group classes. And I was like, okay, well, the group classes will pay for the rent and my personal training will pay for my income. That was
Right.
kind of my plan in my head. But getting in, it's like gym ownership is a lot more and it's way different than just like working in a gym or being a personal
Yeah.
trainer, right? So it's two completely different jobs. So for a while there, I was pretty much like a half-assed owner and a half-assed trainer. So I was the half-assed in two
Mm.
jobs. So that was really hard for me to realize. And that's one thing I would recommend to guys like me that are looking, or people like me that are looking to open a gym, is like it's going to change your job. Like what you do now, if you're a personal trainer, like you're going to have to choose whether you want to stay personal training and have somebody run the business, or if you're going to run the business and have somebody work for you doing the training.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you just mentioned. Like, what's the point of owning a gym if you're just going to make money from personal training anyway, and you're going to have the group training pay for the gym? Like, you might as well just not have the risk and overhead and just
Right.
keep personal training with rent, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, coaches, trainers, the path, like this logical step in their mind is I'm going to train, I'm going to coach, maybe I'll manage a gym, then I'm going to open a gym, or maybe I'll just go coach to gym ownership. And it's one of those things where I don't necessarily believe the grass is always greener. I think that we've idolized, entrepreneurship, especially in the last like 5 to 8 years with social media and stuff. But I think it's the path for some, and it's a great path. It's highly rewarding, to some. But I think it can be very difficult and also shine a light on all of our weaknesses as well. And the key is, figuring out how to actually operate a business and then applying the gym and the culture and the things you want to build to a business model. It's gym ownership is one of those things where like no one goes and gets their MBA and they're like, I'm gonna go open a gym now. They go and do a software startup or something. And so it's usually a passion based business. It's kind of similar to like how blue collar work is. You have a plumber who maybe wants to run a plumbing company one day, open up their own shop, and some people do it, and many fail. I think I see kind of trainers and gym owners it's like kind of the same route. I mean, I did it too.
Yeah.
So I'm not knocking it, but I think people they think that that's the logical step when I think it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And that's a great comparison, like blue collar to gym owners, because ownership is way different. It's like there's so much more involved, which I didn't know. I mean, there's, I never went to business school or anything. I just worked at gyms forever. I'm like, oh yeah, I got this, I could do this. But owning and operating a gym, it's just like so much more than I was like ready for. So many more things that I didn't know, right? I had to learn the hard way. So
Yeah. What was your first like crap moment when you realized like ownership was a different game than just being a personal trainer?
good question. Crap moment. It's probably in the beginning, like when I bought the gym and I was going through like the member list, because there was maybe like, I don't know, 100 members in the gym software listed as members, but then maybe like 70 of them were actually paying clients. And I was just kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is, I'm going to have to find a lot of new people. Like, this is not, where am I going to generate this income from? Like, what am I going to do? Just the overhead too, like the surprising costs that you pay, because there's a lot of costs that go into a lot of overhead. So that was kind of like a shock. Like, oh, I go from like this, where it's me and my clients and I just pay rent to the owner of the studio. This is like it. And I spend money on my certifications and stuff like that, continuing ed. That was like it for overhead, insurance. Well, when you have the gym, I mean, there's so much more, right? There's like first rent, right? You got to get electricity, all your utilities, gym software, right? Then your certifications, insurance. I mean, it's like, it just kind of adds up. That was a
Yep.
big wake up call for me too. It's just like, holy crap, there's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, there's so many fixed costs that we don't like bake into our scenarios in our heads
Right.
on like what it costs. We look at, I think coaches trying to get into the gym ownership game, they look at, oh, this place is leasing $2 a square foot. Great, it'll be $5,000 a month. I can do $5,000 a month. I make this much with training. Like, and then they're not adding in internet and insurance for the space. And,
Yeah.
maybe they factor in equipment, but they don't factor in utilities or just incidentals, things that happen. I remember like I have a gym, we have like 3 bathrooms, and I remember one of our toilets like completely like went out, and we had plumbers come in and quote us $8,000 to replace them all. I'm like, oh, okay, like it must be in my lease that the landlord pays for this. I look at my lease and I'm like, oh, no, 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 I pay for all of this, all plumbing indoors. And so I go, okay, and things like that I just didn't realize. I signed a lease, and now all of a sudden I got to come up with $8,000 to do toilets that the landlord gets to take if I ever leave. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's like those oh shit moments where you're like, okay, it's kind of like owning a house where, again, same thing, like something happens and it's like, oh crap, I didn't save $20,000 to replace my roof, but the roof needs to be replaced. The same goes for owning a business. You own every aspect and it all falls on you. And then it makes you, like you said, the kind of a half-assed, crappy operator in the
Right.
business as a coach or a trainer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely, man. You mentioned you hired Two Brain Business back in 2019 for some business coaching and mentorship stuff. What changed immediately after getting mentorship? What did you put to action right away?
Right away was just getting systems in place, right? I didn't have anything like written out, like how to open the gym, how to turn the lights on, what to do, just opening and closing. It's just simple stuff like that. Standard operating procedures, like, sure, it's in my head, but nobody can get inside my head and like read what I'm thinking or see what I'm thinking, right? So just getting that all down on paper so that way I can delegate it much easier was like, it seems so simple when I realize it. I'm just like, duh, I gotta, standardize this stuff and write it out. But the process of doing it is a completely different thing. Like, it's just like one of those things that's always, gets put on the back burner. Like, I'll do that later. So working with Two Brain Business, it's like, no, you're going to do that now. We're going to write this out. So you got it and you can implement this. So that was
Yeah,
big.
definitely. Yeah, I think like reflecting on like when I started my gym, I started bringing on coaches and staff. You sort of assume that everyone can read your mind, and then you're frustrated when they don't do it the way you want it done. But then you look and if you ask yourself and look in the mirror and you say, did I set them up for success? The answer is probably no.
Right.
And so like step number one, I think a lot of business, I had hired another one back in the day too, around 2018, 19, another business coach. And like we talk about duplication of ourselves. We want other people to be, like us in the space. And step one is, well, what makes you you? What makes you really good at the things you do that are tangible that someone can learn or know, not necessarily the intangibles, like core values maybe we were brought up with, but even those can be sort of, pushed as well. And so I think we see a lot of mistakes there where, yeah, like if you don't have set expectations or SOPs on how something gets done, it's not gonna get done how you want it to. And you can either do something about it and create the SOPs and the boring work, or you can just operate with mediocrity and be upset. And so I see that happen a ton with gym owners.
Yeah. I did that for quite a while, just doing that, which eventually just leads to burnout and you're just
Yeah.
frustrated and things just aren't growing. So I got to the
Yep.
point where I was like, I got to do something. Like, I don't know what else I would do for a job, right? Because I was just like, this is what I want to do with my life. So I got to make it to where it's sustainable and it's successful.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned shifting from like trainers paying rent, even in your space, to hiring them on as employees. What caused that shift? What pushed you to go in that direction?
With that, like me, I guess a couple things. So like way back when, I've experienced both. Like I've worked as a staff trainer, which is great. The gym gets you the clients and stuff. And then I've worked as like a independent contractor, right? Where I go out and I hustle and I get clients for myself. So coming from that independent contractor type of thing into this gym, I was like, yeah, I'll bring in some other trainers and kind of see how that goes. It was what I was doing at the studio previously, just paying rent. But I quickly found that like, trainers were getting clients from, or, their clients that were members of the gym were now becoming clients of theirs, right? So they stopped
Yeah.
paying the gym and now they're paying the trainer. And I'm just kind of like, wait a minute. It's just like having I think it was Chris Cooper speaking of Two Brain Business. He says it's kind of like having a hot dog cart come and set up in the middle of your restaurant. So, so
I always 100%, and I always think like if we one of the because I did the same thing and I did it from the start. I think it can be enticing to go to the trainer rent model because you look at it as like, oh, I have the space, I pay the lease, I pay the utilities, and I just get trainers in here. They pay me rent, it's gonna be grand. I never have to market. I can just get trainers and it's easy. And then you realize like, well, trainers have their own churn and they try training and then they leave and get out of it and go be a real estate agent or something
right,
when they're done, when it's not as easy as they thought it would be, which real estate isn't any easier, but they'll find that out later.
right,
And then and so you're dealing with like the same problems. Trainers are just kind of like your clients, or like what you said is like you're sort of losing clients to this individual. Why I believe that we should own the revenue as the business. We own and distribute the revenue to the coaches, to the trainers, and it gives us better business, better practices
right,
to allow us to, I think, take on more risk. Like we can swing bigger because we can rely on the revenue coming in. If a coach were to leave, the client belongs to the gym, it's okay. Versus if it's the opposite scenario, you lose a few trainers overnight, all of a sudden that could be half of your book of business and it's
yeah,
gone.
yeah,
So I
exactly,
I agree.
yeah, and as the gym owner, like we're the ones taking the big risk right
Yeah.
there, right? So it's just kind of like it makes sense to go that route.
Definitely. Tell me, one of the things that you talk about being huge with your business too is like the member experience and your retention. And we know retention is like one of the most important metrics to running a successful, gym business. What does it look like for you? Like, tell me about how you get a client engaged. Client signs up. What does the onboarding flow look like? How do you get them engaged long term?
Engaged long term is just getting them involved with everything as much as you can in the very beginning. So let's say I sign somebody up and, that day I give them something, give them like a sticker, like, hey, here you go. It's official, high five, fist bump, introduce them to everybody I can in the class, or, who's at the gym at the time. And we do a couple of onboarding sessions with new athletes that come on where we just meet with them or a coach meets with them. Kind of goes over all of the ins and outs of the gym, the facility, like where things are, how to reserve your spot in class, how to log scores, log your weights, the culture of the gym, what we're about, introducing them to all the coaches, all the athletes, kind of setting them up for success, like building confidence so that it's not as intimidating when they start up because it's scary. It's scary like going into a new place, especially a gym, especially like a CrossFit gym. It's like scary as hell, right? So we want to make it as smooth of a process as possible by just integrating them from the very get-go. So on top of like the onboarding sessions, we have usually their first class or so, we have a coach like in that class taking it, as well as like, because all of our coaches, they do the workouts, right? They take the classes here.
Yeah,
So kind of
it's
like a
huge.
buddy, like, okay, here's how we do this. Here's the bar that you're going to use. Here's the stuff, just kind of like help them out in their first experience. And then definitely like making sure that the class knows that they're new. Fist bumps, high fives. Everybody introduces themselves at least at some point. On top of that, we send out, like welcome texts. I check in with them. Like the first 10 days is like we check in a lot. And not like auto texts, but more like it's me, like, hey, how was the workout last night? How are you feeling from those deadlifts? Or, something like a phone call after the first week. We do that, a lot of that too. So it's a lot of like personal touch and like get them really, really involved, really involved.
Definitely.
For longer term retention, we do quarterly goal reviews with each one of our athletes. When they come in, we do, our regular, like, hey, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What have you been doing? We do body composition analysis. So we have an InBody scanner here that we scan everybody with. Before I had that, I would do like the calipers and like the tape, the circumference
Yeah.
measurements and stuff. And then after that initial goal setting session, we set goals, kind of look at where they're at. We book out another goal setting or goal review, we call it, like 3 months from then. So that way it's on the books. We send them like a calendar, like a Google Calendar date. And that way it's like on the book. So it's like, oh, okay, I got my goal review coming up. So it keeps people like motivated. We go over like how they're doing. We can fix problems if they're like falling off. If they're doing awesome, we celebrate it, of course, just anything to kind of keep that retention going, keep them engaged.
I love that. Yeah, I think the goal review portion is huge. Like one of the things that we did that worked really well, I took a look at some of our numbers a while back, and I noticed that if a client stayed for more than 6 months, they stayed for over 2 years, like typically. And so
Yeah.
what we knew is, okay, then I need to push super hard in that first 90 to 180 days to get the client super engaged, seeing results, get some quick wins. And then how do we make sure that we're on schedule, we're on the path, the same goals that they came in with? Are we still on track for those? Did the goals shift? Did they change? And the only way we can do that is having the conversation. And so I think that's so huge. I think a lot of coaches, gym owners, they sign the client up, deal's done, great, we made the sale, okay, go into class, and then someone can kind of feel like they're just part of, the machine, and they're not really seen and heard. And so I think that's super cool you guys do that. I know that for a fact, I'm sure it's a huge value add for your members to ensure that they're getting what they need, or else they're going to leave. And that's just how it works, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's not
Yeah.
a ton of work. I mean, it sounds like a lot of steps when I'm saying it, but it's really not a lot of work, not a lot of effort on our part.
Yeah. So you've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years. And I think this is one of those industries that likes to chew people up and spit them out. We see a lot of churn in the industry with coaches, gym owners, trainers. How have you staved off burnout? I'm sure there's been periods of time when you felt more burned out versus less. Like, what tips, tricks, hacks have you been able to uncover that has allowed you to stay in the game long term?
Good question. So long term, like I did experience burnout a couple of times, right? So like way back when I was doing the major, it was personal training was like the main part of my day. I started doing some management stuff. So less personal training, more management. And I got burned out on that because I felt myself like working even more. So I stepped back, consolidated my schedule, just kind of, took of course, a pay cut, but it was not so much about that. It was enough to still live off of. It was more about just like getting through that burnout, just getting my mental capacity back. So that way
Yeah.
I could continue doing this job that I love, because I really don't know what else I would do. I think about that, or, I've thought about that plenty of times. Like, what would I do if I wasn't doing this? And it's like, well, I'd probably just do personal training. It's like, so just dialing it back, knowing that that's going to make me better. That's going to make me feel better. So that way I can keep going like for the long term in the gym industry. And yeah, I guess just knowing like, well, I was going to say knowing when to ask for help, but that's always just kind of like it's easier said than done. But if you're able to ask for help, if you're like, dude, I need some help, like when I've got some mentorship, or I asked to not be a manager anymore. Just like, dude, I can't do this anymore. It's killing me. I guess just knowing when to step back and not calling it quits completely, knowing that it's going to get better again in the long run. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I think even as the business owner, we personally have strengths and weaknesses, and we personally have things we love to do, and there's things like we don't necessarily love to do or like to do. I did this exercise one time. My business runs on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. Highly
Right, right.
recommend to everyone. And there's an exercise in there called the Delegate and Elevate worksheet. And I do a lot of business mentorship where I teach other gym owners and coaches how to grow their business. And I always have them do this at some point in the journey if we're trying to scale and grow, or if we're not doing the things as an owner that we probably should be doing. And at the top left, it's things I'm great at and things I love to do. And then there's things I like to do and I'm okay at. And then there's things like I'm great at, but I don't like to do. And there's things I'm bad at and I don't like to do. And so what we want to do is we take everything in the bottom right quadrant and we say, okay, how can we delegate this so that we can elevate and do more of the things we love to do? And it's a hard thing. Like I realized in 2020, 2021, that because I was running the business, I was not the level of coach I needed to be to support our clients. And so what I did was I made the hard decision. I offloaded 60 personal clients to my team. And I said, guys, like I'm going to focus on running this business because I felt like I was leaning into the business ownership aspect. I loved to do it. Enjoyed it. And then I empowered them to coach. They got some high level athletes, all this stuff, and they were stoked on that. And it allowed me to really focus and hone in on vision and goals and drill that down to team and increase the client experience as well. So like I knew by shifting that stuff off, the client's going to get better experience from a gym standpoint. They're going to get a better coach who's better than me at this point because they have the time and attention span to do it and capacity. And then I can focus on the business. And I think that what can be hard is, we get into this because we love coaching and then we take this next step into owning a business. And then sometimes the owning a business can kill your passion for the coaching because then you're trying to balance and spin too many plates. And then unfortunately, we can fall out of love with the thing, or it can be the opposite. It is like what you mentioned. Maybe it's you love coaching. You open the business, you realize you don't love the business side. You bring in a partner who's a good business operator or someone who runs your QuickBooks and P&L and does like the boring stuff, and you keep coaching. And I think that there's pros and cons to both scenarios, but I think the key is filtering through and figuring out what you're best at and where you can make sure that you can be the star player in your game to get the most out of it. And I find that people get the most return because of it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I did. I delegated out like the QuickBooks and
Yeah.
the payroll and all the boring stuff. Right. So that way I can keep coaching. I can keep being in the gym and doing what ultimately I was passionate about and like kept me at it in the game.
Definitely. How has I guess CrossFit programming changed, for you over the years with like what you've seen? And then even like with HYROX coming in, I think you mentioned you guys are doing some HYROX stuff as well. You've seen some of that pop up.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on how CrossFit has changed? How have you adapted your culture community in that ecosystem? And then tell me about this HYROX thing that we're seeing everywhere as well.
Yeah, sure. For us, what I think, there's been a lot of CrossFit affiliates that have come and gone over the years. And what's really kept the good ones going is coaching, like coaches that keep developing, they keep learning. And with that, they have the ability to customize workouts for everybody, right? Because like back in the day, it's like you go in there. A lot of the gyms would just have the workout of the day. It's just like the super hard workout. Everybody would just like do that without modifying properly or like getting coached to modify things. So you get a lot of people like getting hurt or, just like, I can't do this. This is insane. So having that ability and just continuing to learn how to make this workout adaptable to every single person so that everybody hits the goals of the workout, although they're not doing the same exact written, components of the workout, is kind of become like the forefront of affiliates now. Like it's really good coaching and not just like getting in and going after it and just grinding through.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, like we've seen a big shift in that the last few years, which has been good, which has allowed us to really thrive as a CrossFit affiliate. And with HYROX, that's become like big. It's like developed in Europe, I think like in 2020 or something like that, a few years ago. But it's gotten huge everywhere. And now it's just getting out to Arizona, and they just announced a race in Phoenix, it's coming up in end of January. And now people are like, it's getting excited about it. So what it pretty much is like running combined with CrossFit movements and CrossFit movements that are like less technical, right?
I've
like
seen like
wall
sled
roll,
push in there, stuff like that. Yeah.
burpees, the rowing machine, the ski erg. So it's stuff that you would do in a normal CrossFit workout, in some CrossFit programming, but it's more accessible to people. You know,
Yeah.
it's they say it's like HYROX is for everybody. It's because it's like it's easier movements to learn, and it's the same race every time. Like it's a standardized race, so you know what you're going to be doing when you go do a HYROX race. So we've seen a surge with that, like people interested in that, kind of taking over like what used to be like boot camp. You know, like years back there was like boot camp workouts, like hit workouts, stuff like that. Now like HYROX is replacing that in gym settings.
It's always funny to me how, like, I mean, you've been around long enough to see the trends and fads. I've been in the game for like 12, 13-ish years, and you see trends. And like it's you have spin, and then you have, Orange Theory was huge, and we had the boot camps and fit body stuff, and then now you've got, and then you had CrossFit, that blew up all around that. And then people are getting really into running now.
Yeah.
Everyone's running again, which is hilarious. People are getting outdoors. Maybe COVID helped push that. I don't know. But
Or weight
at the
vest.
end,
Everybody's wearing a weight vest now.
oh yeah, yeah, like long walks with the weight
Yeah.
vest and hikes and stuff. And it's all great. Like, I mean, I'm sure you're the same way. Like any modality of fitness, I'm stoked on. Like, I'm like, yeah, get out, do some stuff, move around, like get our bodies moving, get the heart rate
Oh
up.
yeah.
It's healthy. But it is funny how like we take like the most basic principles of fitness, or we just take the principles of fitness, and then someone decides to package it and name it something, and that's the new thing. And then
Yeah.
everyone's doing it. And then I'm sure in a few years, something else is going to pop out that's like endurance walks with weight vests plus pull-ups and wall balls and like bench press, and they're going to call it something, and then everyone's going to do that thing. And I don't know, it's just always funny to see kind of how the trends shift in the fitness
Yeah.
sphere, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like history repeating, just like
Yeah.
rebranding of the same
And I
stuff.
think it's interesting, like, and I don't know your thoughts on this, kind of off topic, I guess, but like, I always see, you see a lot of these like franchise locations pop. Orange Theory is one of them. Like, I did Orange Theory I was doing high school athletics. My parents were going to Orange Theory, so I started going to Orange Theory. Like, oh yeah, like that's good workout. Like, I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get better endurance, whatever. And you have all these franchises that open, and then the fad changes and it becomes more stale, and then they go to the next thing. What are your thoughts on like kind of going all in on a thing? Like, I guess people would argue CrossFit's kind of been dead or dying or whatever, and there's arguments I think on that on both sides. But like,
Sure.
what are your thoughts on a gym owner sort of going all in? Like, if you just became a HYROX gym, do you see that as risky? Like, you want to stay in all these different things and be dynamic, I would assume, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because we're a CrossFit affiliate, right? So
Yeah.
we're in one of those like I don't want to say fads, but it's like it's kind of what what category we fall into. And then with that, like for me, like I got into CrossFit, like we found it, like me and the guys that I was working with found it, like the website back in like '05, and we started doing the workouts ourselves. So for me, it's like, this is awesome. This is giving me like the best bang for my fitness buck, like the fastest way to fitness. And it's stuff that's challenging me, but also stuff that I like to do. So it's like, for me, that's how I'm going to work out forever. Now, owning the affiliate, like, is that going to be like something to keep forever? I mean, right now, I think so. It's kind of like you said, it's like been kind of it's had its ups
Ups and
and
downs.
downs, right? So, but for now, I mean, we're good. We definitely have, I think, been able to branch out to more people who are maybe like scared of CrossFit, like, oh no, you can't do that. Like just from word of mouth and what we do. So it's a little bit more like, oh, these guys they actually do it right. Like, maybe I will try CrossFit. But yeah, it's kind of risky. And I've thought about it many times. Like, do I stay an affiliate, or do I just go on my own and just call it like Brice's Fitness or whatever?
Yeah.
Um,
Fitness Fix. Or I've seen so much of that too, like people de-affiliating and
yeah,
rebranding to like functional this or fitness that. And, I mean, I'm pretty sure from McGuire here, my gym's named SoCal Powerlifting. So like,
right.
what you see is what you get. I always joke, like, we'll get people who reach out that are looking for like Olympic weightlifting, and they reach out to us and we're like, it says it in the name, like we're powerlifting. And I've seen powerlifting trends shift and change, and people into it, not into it, whatever. And so but it was named that. I named it that. And I did it on purpose too. Like, I didn't want to just be SoCal Strength, because you don't know what you're getting. Someone reads my name, they know
Right.
what we're about. But it's hurt me in the sense where someone might see powerlifting and they think, oh, that's too intense for me. And all it is resistance training. We just
Yeah.
we do compound movements, we do some accessories, like we don't max out every day. People have misconceptions, but unfortunately, because we put ourselves in this niche, it also can hinder us. And so I think there's again pros and cons to both. One would be, right, like, it is good to niche down and be something, stand for something, but at the
Right.
same time, when you do that, you do lose a market share potentially on people who would have otherwise found you, or people who would probably enjoy the workouts you do, but they don't go because, oh, it's CrossFit.
Right.
Even though they would love the workout and it'd be great and they could totally do it.
Yeah, because it's just functional fitness. It's really what
Yeah.
CrossFit is, just functional fitness. But yeah, I do get a lot of like, oh no, I can't do that. That's hard. I'm like, well, you can do that. Like you can definitely come in
Yeah.
and do this. So yeah,
Definitely.
we get a lot of people just not considering us just because we have CrossFit in the name. So yeah, that's one thing. And and I think about that, and I'm like, well, what if I didn't have that in the name? Would I get the same amount of people? Would I get more people? It's like I don't know.
You
We're
never
doing
know.
we're
Yeah.
doing okay as a CrossFit affiliate right now. So we'll just keep. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And hopefully we can convince some of those people that are scared of it to come in and actually like experience what we do.
Yeah. And we did that. We started offering this last year, like a free coaching session to start.
Yeah. Okay.
People take us up on it, and then great, like we can show them how to squat better, bench better, deadlift, show them some accessories and variations, and make it more appetizing to the layman's lifter or person who just wants to get strong, feel better in their bodies, and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that stuff's that's huge, man. As we kind of wrap up here, I wanted to ask you kind of a deeper question. Like, so when you look at what you've done thus far in your life and business with your gym, what are you most proud of today?
Most proud of today, really just sticking with it, because there's been a lot of times where I'm just like, I'll sell my gym for $1 right now. Like
I know
I can
that
be
feeling.
done with this. But just sticking through that because ultimately like this is what I love, just working in the fitness field and being able to do that, man, just being able to make a career out of what I really enjoy doing. And there's times where it's pays the bills, great. And sometimes it's like not. It's like crap. This is hard. But just having the ability to continue to do it and make it through and like push through the next day, dude, it feels so good. It's just like I get to just live what I love to do. So it's um that's what's kept me going. It's just like, man, not a lot of people get to do this. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah, it's definitely a privilege to be able to do what you love, and it's harder than people think. But sticking with it, especially as long as you have, I think is massive.
Yeah, the payoff is big despite all the
Definitely.
struggles.
Cool, man. Well, Bryce, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, Zach, thank you. Yeah, this has been fun, man. I appreciate it.